Hello, and welcome to this evening's TI Technology webinar hosted by Texas Instruments, where we will take a look at how to learn how to code using Python and the TI-Nspire CX technology. I see that many of you are joining us for the first time, so we'd like to offer a special welcome if this is your first T3 professional development webinar. We'd also like to thank everyone for completing the survey that will appear in a few minutes. My name is Stacy Thibodeau, and I will be the moderator for this evening. I have been in the science classroom for 20 years. I currently teach at Southside High School in Youngsville, Louisiana, where I teach all levels of Chemistry 1 and Chemistry 2. And I teach an introduction to robotics class that I can't wait to learn Python and use with my students. I use TI technology to assist my teaching, data collection, and modeling mathematic concepts, linking them to the science content, as well as the TI Innovator Hub for my robotics program. I'm so happy tonight to introduce you to our panelists, Tony Norrell and Andy Parr. Tony has over 25 years of teaching experience from 5th grade to college algebra. She retired as a math specialist at ESC Region 2. Currently, she is a T3 regional instructor and owns Norrell Mathematics Consulting. She is a recipient of the Presidential Awards for Excellence in Mathematics and Science Teaching. Tony enjoys working with math teachers to help integrate technology into their classrooms. Thank you for being with us tonight, Tony.
Thank you, Stacy. It's great to be here. I'm excited to play with Python tonight.
We also have Miss Andy Parr. Andy has been working in mathematics education since 1999. She has taught pre-algebra through AP statistics. She currently lives in Central Texas and serves as a math specialist working with middle and high school math, computer science, and STEM teachers. Thanks for being with us, Andy.
Hi, I'm glad to be here. I'm looking forward to a great evening.
We're expecting a large crowd, so your audio is muted. Feel free to send questions to all panelists using the Q&A chat window on the right side of your screen. We will also send general messages in the chat window. This session is being recorded, and as a reminder, we will provide a link to this event's certificate of attendance at the conclusion of the webinar. Once the recording is available, if you would like to follow along with your handheld or software, and we hope you will, we recommend doing this with the recording so you can download the activities and pause and rewind as necessary. We don't expect you'll have any audio issues tonight. I do know that there's some storms in the area of Louisiana and Texas and Kansas, so we'll see about that. But in the event that you do, try to select Communicate in the WebEx menu, Audio Broadcast, and then click Join. Tony, would you like to go over our agenda tonight?
Sure. So tonight we're going to do an introduction to Python and TI technology and how those two work together. And we're going to look at the menu-driven Python commands that make Python with the TI technology really fun because you do not have to know Python to get started. And then we're going to create and then enhance and even debug some Python functions and programs.
Very nice. Andy, would you like to go over our expected outcomes, please?
Absolutely. So we have a couple of expected outcomes for this evening, and one of them is looking at distinguishing between the Python editor and the Python shell. And we're really going to utilize that vocabulary-driven machine, finding everything we need in the menu, which, as Tony just said, is letting us capitalize on those syntax structures so we don't get bogged down in the syntax, but really keep pushing forward to our goals for each program we write. And we are going to create and run programs. We're going to create 2 of them and enhance and build upon them.
Thank you. So I didn't mention this a while ago, but this is a 3 webinar series. So if after tonight, if you're still interested in more for Python, I'll post the information for the next 2 webinars, and that way you can join us and learn more. So take it away, Andy, if you want to go ahead and share your screen.
Sounds great. Oh, just 1 second. Will you share with me so I can, oh, there I am. Wonderful. You should be able to see my software at this point.
Yes,
And
we can.
perfect. So again, our goal tonight, we're going to create a couple of programs, and from each of those programs really build and enhance and explore some different options. So whether you are using your handheld, whether you have the software open, or if you just want to follow along today and then come back and watch the recording and try it again, any of those options are great. So again, on your home screen, we're going to press that home screen. We're going to create a new document. And I already had some things open, so if you had anything open, we don't need to save it. And what's great is with the CX2, you now have, it says add Python. And again, we're going to add a new Python program. And with this program, this first one, you can name it anything you want to name it. I'm going to name it simply _print, because what we're going to do with this first one is we're going to work on those print statements. And then you notice I put that underscore there because when you name a program, you can't have spaces. So that helps separate those words.
And Andy, we're not going to worry about the type at this point, right? That'll come up in future webinars.
Absolutely.
More advanced. Okay, great.
Yes, yes. And so what we want to start with, again, as we talked about just a second ago, this is a menu-driven machine. And so everything we're looking at, just about everything we find, we're going to find through this menu right here. And what we're going to start with is we're going to create and define a function. This function at the beginning is just going to be very straightforward. And then again, we'll build and expand upon it. So go to menu. The functions are built in. So we're going to choose built-ins and functions. And we want to start with defining a function.
Okay, so Andy, I'm a math teacher, so I know about functions. So is this similar to functions that I do in math, like f of x and g of x?
It's similar because we're going to be asking this program to this function to do something.
Okay.
So just as in math, we have f of x, g of x, and a name of something. Here we've got to name that function. And this function, I spelled correctly, am going to name it simple.
Okay.
Because what I would like to do is simply print.
So I noticed a couple of things. Number one, the name of your program up above is listed simply print, but simple is the name of your function.
Function, correct.
Right? Okay. And I also noted that all of this, like this template came up when you chose define function.
Yes. And so you could absolutely, if you know the syntax, you can absolutely type it. We encourage that, especially as you're starting, to use that menu. And that menu is going to give the template, give that format. You notice that I have the argument right now highlighted. And by the way, I'm going to hit delete because I don't want an argument right now. We'll come back to that in a minute. But I have this colon here. and these two little diamonds, and those diamonds show that how far we're indenting. And had I typed it, that wouldn't have come up.
Okay.
I would have to add that. Great
So
observation.
that's one of the things I really, really like about Python on my CX2, because I don't know Python on any other platforms. And so it helps me learn the syntax of Python while I'm creating programs.
Absolutely, yes. Yes, and so that using those templates help overcome some of those barriers. So I'm going to press my down button. Now I have that block highlighted. Now I named the program Simply Print, so I would remember what is my goal for this program. And I really would like to print a statement. And so to print that statement, again, I'm going to go to Menu. It is built in. My thought is it's probably, a print statement's probably common, it's built in. And I noticed this option 6, that's IO, that's input and output. Well, that print is going to be an output. And I'm going to choose print right there. Now, I want to print a statement. I want to print words. And with those words, I would like to clarify that it is a string. So when I'm typing a string, I'm going to use quotations. And I want to call this my first program.
Okay.
And close that. And Tony, what are you noticing?
Well, I'm noticing a couple of things. Number one, the color, because I saw where we defined the function, all of a sudden it was blue. And then now when you're typing the string of characters and you put it in quotations, it's green.
Yes, it's great. The Nspire does a great job of showing color coding for you. Green are going to be strings. That blue are those reserved words. And those
I
keywords.
Andy, if you can go back over where you found those quotations, I know in Python you can either use single quotations or double quotations as long as you're consistent. But
Yes.
I know the double quotations are easier to find on the Nspire. So can you show us again where you found that?
So a couple places you can find that is one, those quotations, you'll notice it's in blue or yellow, depending on what type of handheld you have, right here above the multiplication sign. So you'd hit the control, and then I'm going to just go ahead and put it here, control, and then multiply, and it gives you that one quotation.
Okay.
Also, it is down in punctuation. So in punctuation, we have either that double or that single quotation.
Okay, thank you.
If you were on your software, you could type it. Either way works. Any of those ways works. There's 9 times out of 10, there's multiple ways to accomplish something.
Great.
At this point, when I press enter, I still have that indentation, and really at this point, I'm done with that function. So I'm going to press backspace or delete twice because I want to get out of the function. And now I've defined the function. Now the next part I need to do is call the function. I need to say, go, happen, do whatever I've asked you to do within that function. And so to do that, I simply need to type it. So I'm going to type simple with parentheses.
So we defined the function up above, but if we don't call the function like you did right now, if we tried to run it without calling it, we wouldn't see anything. It wouldn't work.
We'd have absolutely nothing.
Okay.
So right now I am in the Python editor and I want to run, and since I said my goal, hopefully it will say my first program. To run it, again, go to menu. With menu, there's that run. You'll notice it also says Control R. Control R will work just fine, and I'll probably use that in the future rather than going to the menu right now. But here's that Control R for run. You notice I'm now in the Python shell. It tells me it's running it. And here it printed my first program. Woohoo! It worked. That's exactly what I wanted it to do.
So Andy, when you go back to page 1.1,
Yes.
and by the way, to go back to 1.1, we can either use control and the touchpad on the handheld left and right, or we can use our cursor.
Yes.
And I forgot my statement now. Oh, did we have to use a function in order just to do a print statement?
Absolutely not. We
Okay.
could have just said print
Okay.
and it would have run it. And the reason that created that function is because now we want to enhance it a little bit.
Okay. So we're focusing on functions, right? And so we
Yes.
wanted to start with a simple function, and then I bet we're going to get more complex.
We are, because I
Okay.
want to know whose first function is this? Let's put someone's name there.
Oh, that sounds great. Okay.
I
So
like it.
instead of my first program, we'll put a name.
Yes.
Okay.
And I want to be able to change whose name. I mean, absolutely. I could put Andy's first program here as a string and run it, but I want to create that argument, whose first function, and be able to change it. So
Sounds
up
good.
here, earlier, it said argument, and I deleted it and I said we'd come back to it later. Well, now it's later. Here we are. And let's say we want name here. Well, I want to print whatever name I put here. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to edit this slightly. I'm going to type name, because whatever name I put in there, that's what I want. But I want more than just that name. I want to say, this is Andy's, this is Tony's, this is Stacy's first program. So what I need to do is concatenate, which is just a really fun word to say.
A fancy word for just connecting things together.
Yes, and specifically it connects strings. Remember, strings are in green. It connects strings. So within this string, I'm taking out my, and I want it to be apostrophe S, first string, first program.
So name is a variable. You just
Yes.
made that up. You just said a variable name.
Yes.
Okay.
So up here, when I defined it, this is the formal parameter. And now I need to, when I call that program, I need to say, what is it? And now because I want it to be a string, I'm going to put it in quotations. And now I want it to be Andy's or Andy. So here's Andy is my actual parameter. Name is my formal parameter.
Okay. And then where it looks like there's three quotations, that's the quotation for the beginning of the string. And then the single is the apostrophe S, so that it will say Andy's first program.
Correct.
Okay. And why can't we just put Andy? Why do we have to put as your actual argument? Why do we have to put Andy in quotations?
Because when you concatenate, again, fun word, when you concatenate, this plus sign, which you notice is in red, is connecting strings. That plus sign connects strings. So I need to say that this is a string.
Okay.
Are we ready to run it?
Also, yes, I have one more question. I noticed that if you go back up to the top, the name of your program, Simply Print, there's now an asterisk next to it.
There is, because at this point, I haven't run it. I haven't saved it. I haven't checked it. So it's telling me I need to check it and save it and run it.
Okay.
And that can all happen with that Control R or going to menu and run. So that's exactly what we want to do. I'm going to hit Control and then R, and it ran it, and excited to say that it worked. So here's when I ran it the first time for it to say my first program. Now we have Andy's first program.
Okay. So each time we could go in and put a different name in that method call.
Sure,
long
let's
as we
put your name in there,
Okay, I'd like that.
because you got to make a program too. I didn't change anything else. And again, this is the program editor. You notice that .py, we have the Python symbol. Here's the program editor. The editor is where I create, where I make the program. And the shell, I'm going to hit Control R again to run it. The shell, there's Tony's first program. The shell is where it's executed. There are some things that we can do within the shell. We're not going to necessarily do that today, but the shell is where that program is run. It's where it's executed.
Yeah, it's a little bit like a calculator page, right? Because you can actually do some calculations on it and so forth if you're trying something out.
Yes.
Andy, is there a way that you can put these two pages together where you can see them at the same time?
There are. So if we hit Control 4, on Control 4, you can split the page and it'll take whatever page you're currently on and the next page. The next page there. So it opened up and that Python shell. So now you notice the editor is highlighted in blue. So if I run it, now it says Tony's first program.
Nice. And I could see where that could be a problem if it's a really big program because you can't see everything, but it is kind of nice for a quick visual to be able to see both the editor and the shell at the same time.
Absolutely. And if you want to separate them, there's your Control 6. So Control 6 separates them, makes them individual pages, and Control 4 combines them. All right. So what I'm going to do, that was just to simply print, and we'll come back to this in just a little bit towards the end. We'll start using some of these things from this program into our next program. But I'm going to press the home button and I'm going to create a new program. So again, I'm going to, from the home screen, press 1 for new program. That was a fabulous first program. It was great, but I'm not going to save it right now. So I'm going to press no. We can add Python. Again, you notice it has new and it has shell. If there's several things you could do within the shell, but right now we're going to stick with the program editor. So I'm going to call, ask for a new one. Now, what we just printed, we printed strings, which are great. But for that next step, I want to do something a little bit more. In my classroom, kids were always asking what their grade was, what their average was. And let's just start with a grades program. So I'm going to call this one grades. I'm still going to leave it as a blank program at this point and press OK. And it's ready for whatever I need. So again, we're going to start with a function. So I'm going to go to Menu, Built-ins, Function, and define that function. I'm going to call this one grades as well. You call it whatever you want.
So I don't have to call it the same thing that you named the program. I can name, because earlier the name of the program and the name of the function were different.
They were. They can be
Okay.
different, they can be the same,
Okay.
either one, because they're talking about two completely different things.
Okay.
So in this function, I want to say we have 3 test grades, and then I want to find the average. So it's important to say, well, what is our goal from the get-go? Well, I want to take 3 grades and then find the average of them. And so I'm going to call mine T1 for test 1. I want to put a comma there for T2 and then T3. You know, so I can have those 3 arguments. I'm not restricted to 1. I can have 3. I can have as many as I want and separated by commas. And now, again, because I used the template, I have the colon there, and I have the little diamond, grayed out diamonds, so the indentation and the syntax is correct. With this, well, I need to say, what am I going to do?
So I guess we're going to add those grades up and then divide by 3 and get the average.
Yes, pretty straightforward. Absolutely. And I want to call it, I want to be able to know what it is that I'm doing. So later, when I look at this, for me, 2 days later, I'll remember what my point was. I'm going to call it average. And so if I take average equals, then again, I'm going to use those parentheses to find average. We add them all together. Oop, how about T3? And then divide by 3. Again, once I find the average, the question would be, will this print? Right now it won't, because I haven't asked it to. I need to ask it to print if I want it to print, if I want it to display anything. Menu, these are built-ins. This is that input, output, and print. And what do I want to
I
print?
love, Andy, that it assumes that we're still inside of that function and it automatically puts the little indentation, because I know that indenting is so important to Python. And so, you know, it assumes that we're still inside of that function until we tell it that we're not.
Yes, absolutely. And in this case, I want to print the average. The question is that a string? It's not.
No.
It's a value, it's a number. And if it's that value, I shouldn't put quotations.
We've got people responding that are telling you, nope, that is not a string.
Oh, good. Yes, that's not a string. And if it's not a string, don't put those quotations. So now I want to move out of that function and I need to call it. I need to say, do your thing, do what I've asked you to do. So to call it, I need to type grades, which is the name of that function. Remember, I had those parentheses.
Yeah, so this time you can't leave those parentheses blank because you didn't leave them blank up there in the function.
Correct. When I defined it, I said I want 3 arguments. And if I need 3 arguments, then I need to display 3 arguments. So what are my 3 test grades? I don't know. Let's say we are doing good. We have a 92. We
Oh,
have
these
an
must be my
88.
grades.
Huh, I'm sorry.
These must be my grades.
That's right. And then, I don't know, let's just say we had a bad test day.
Oh,
Didn't reflect our learning so well that day.
okay.
So at this point, because I had 3 test grades in my formal, I've typed 3 in my actual, and I am ready to run it. To run it, If you don't remember Control R, that's perfectly fine, not a big deal. Thanks, Christy, absolutely. We can run, or we can come up here and hit run. And now it ran it. Good job. I got a 70.
Whew.
Made
Okay,
it.
now, Andy, I like this program, but what if I wanted, like I wanted my students to be able to run this program on their handheld and get the average of their grades, but I need for it to look a little bit better. You know, there's things I'd like to do to it. I really don't want them going over and messing with the program. And also when they see 70, I can see some of my students being like, what is that 70? And so what can I do to this program to kind of enhance it a little bit, I guess?
Absolutely. So yeah, you probably don't want your students going back and forth and moving into the arguments. Ideally, they would be prompted to say, what is the first test grade or what is the second test grade, so that they input. So as it's running, you're getting that input. And to do that, let's change this slightly. I'm going to get rid of this part. But if I get rid of that part, if I get rid of the actual, that means I can't have the formal. And therefore, I need to have some way to get that input from the user. And so to get that input from the user, I'm going to press enter, and you notice again that the indentation stays. I need to ask for that information. So to ask for that information, I'm still going to call it T1 for test 1. Do you have to name yours that? Absolutely not. It's just what I'm naming mine. And so I'm going to assign that variable to be that user input. Now I need to start off with, what type of input do I want? Again, I don't want a string. I'm going to ask for an int, an integer. So with that, I'm going to go to menu. You notice the catching the theme here. Right now, we're staying more in built-ins. Come to the next couple of trainings and we're going to move throughout this menu. And I'm going to look at the type of variable, and that type of variable is that int. Could I type it? You absolutely could. That menu, make sure though that you have that correct formatting. I want it as that input. So I'm going to go back to menu and built-ins and input output. And now I'm asking for that input. So again, I've named the variable. I've said what type of variable it is. I've said how I'm going to access that variable. And now I need to say, what am I going to ask?
Yeah, we need some sort of a prompt, right?
Right. What is that prompt? That prompt, again, I'm going to put it in quotations so that it prints that string. And now I'm going to say, what is the first test grade? And close my quotations. And now that helps me, that visual, those color coding help me see, because the closed parentheses are now back to black, that I have finished out that string. Now, I don't want to type that or go through the menu each time. So what I can do is I can go to the end of that line on your handheld, in your software, on your keyboard, hold that shift and your left arrow and select that line. So I'm going to stop right before the indentation, and I'm going to copy that. Copy that, whether you're using your handheld, whether you're using the keypad or your keyboard and the software. Control C is that copy. Press enter, and there's Control V, because I need 3 test grades. in this instance.
So you can do, even on your handheld, you can do shift and the arrow to highlight what you want to copy.
Yes.
Okay.
And I don't want it to be the same variable. I want it to be test 2, so I can't name it the same. I need to name it different. And I'm going to Control V one more time and paste. Yes, I love Control C, Control X, Control V, and I am so appreciative that it works on the TI technology as well. So this is now my 3rd test grade, and I don't want to call it T1, I want to call it T3. Oh, at the right spot, I want to call it T3. So at this point, I have those 3 user inputs asking for the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd test grade. And I want to print, and you said you wanted more than just printing, didn't you, Tony?
Yes, I'd like to try this though. I want to see if this is going to work first.
Okay, let's try this. That Control R or go to Menu and Run. Asking for that 1st test grade. Let's say we had a 90. Let's say we had an 87, and we are rocking it and have 100 on that 3rd test grade. It's been a good week, a good time with this class. Press enter and I get that average.
And Andy, we keep running on this shell, and I noticed what we did above is there in gray. You know, it's grayed out. Now we've run it again. Is there a way that I can clear out the shell if I'm going to keep running this?
Absolutely. Menu is our friend. Pressing menu, you notice that the menu has changed slightly because we're in the shell and not the editor. And so now if I go up to tools, I can clear that history.
Oh, nice.
It makes it great. So now you don't have all those statements there. It doesn't get messy. I like just clearing out the shell so I can see it. I agree with that. Now, Tony, you wanted to, after we have the input, after it finds the average, you wanted to put a little bit more there with it so that it's talking about what is, when we print the average, giving the user information on what that number actually is.
Yes, in that print statement. Yes, that would be great.
So let's come down to this print statement. And in that print statement, let's go ahead and say we're going to put a string and we're going to call, notice the average turned green. I'm not ready for that yet.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to say your current average is, I'm going to put a colon and I'm going to put a space there before I close my parentheses.
Okay. So what happens if we put a plus sign where your cursor is right now to concatenate your current average is with average?
Let's try it. Because that's
Okay.
what we just did. We had that plus sign, we combined them in the print statement. Let's see what happens. So I'm going to Control R or Menu Run. Once you kind of think of what do you think is going to happen, as hopefully it's going to work perfect. Fingers crossed. I think it's going to work. So again, 88. Oh, I'm always optimist. 97 and 80. And it yelled at me.
Oh,
It yelled, did not like it, did not appreciate it.
we needed to get an error at some point. So it says something about converting this float, which I guess was that decimal average, to a string. So what are you thinking, Andy?
So I'm thinking with that plus sign, it told us right here that the issue, where's the issue? And remember we talked about that concatenating, that plus sign combining and your print statement combines strings.
Oh, an average is not a string.
Yes.
Is there a way to make it a string?
We can. There are lots of options here where I'm going to propose an option. So an option is to then just say, I want, for this print statement, I want average to be a string. Let's just turn it into a string. So to do that, I'm going to type str.
And we can
And
also get that on the menu too as well, right?
I believe, yes, you can.
Yeah, under type, I think. Okay, so just for the print statement, just so we can concatenate, we're making it a string.
Yes.
Okay,
So let's try that one more time.
let's see if that works.
Control R. Oh, it's going to be a little messy, but that's okay. So there's 80, 70, 86, and let's see what happened. It worked.
Yay!
That was exactly what I wanted it to do. That works great. Is there anything else that I can do?
Well, one thing I would like to do is kind of like if my students really are using this to get their average, then when they get their average, I'd like for it to maybe say something to them. You know, I'm thinking like, oh, you know, great job, keep up the good work, or something like that.
Yes.
If their average is a certain amount.
Absolutely. Let's do that. And now, just a slight caveat. Right now, we're looking at grades. Grades is an option. It's a way to do it, but you could do this for, like, can you think of other formulas that you could do a program like this?
And Andy, while you're still on this program right now, you talked about how there's other ways, not just concatenating and turning average into a string. And so Wesley brought that up. So would you show how that could work, where instead of concatenating, you're just joining the two, and so you wouldn't have to turn average into a string?
Absolutely. So now I'm going to delete that plus sign. I'm going to delete calling it a string. And I'm going to type a comma. And that comma joins them together. And that way they don't have to both be strings. So now if I press Control R, it's asking for that first test grade. And it works perfect.
Great. Thank you, Wesley. And that worked great too. I know we were using, since we were already using concatenation, we wanted to highlight how you can make a float turn into a string for just for that print statement, just by using the str command. So great.
All right. Again, just to keep things clear, I'm going to come up to these tools and I'm going to clear the history just to clear that page. Not necessary, but I like to. And now, Tony, we're talking about those if statements.
Yeah, like I want to say, like if maybe if the average is greater than or equal to 70 or 75 or whatever, then you know, you're doing well, or you're passing or something like that. So how would I do that?
And so let's do that. So this is still within that function. So I'm going to press my enter. And with that if statement is a control. So I'm going to go to menu. Look at that. There's if right there as part of the little icon. So it is that built in under control. And now I'm going to choose if. The great thing about it, again, by using menu, is that it gives that structure.
I love that template, Andy, because I've tried to do if statements by myself, And guess what I forget to put?
Probably same thing I forget to put, and that's that colon.
That's that colon. So it's great to have that template.
Absolutely. Now, I need to know, what do I want to know is greater than or equal to 70 or 75? And it is that average. So I need
Yeah,
to
that
type.
variable that we called average, right? If it's
Yes.
greater than or equal to, where's greater than or equal to?
Great thing about, again, using that handheld is here are relational keys right here with control above the equal sign. If I hit control and then equal, it will show me in Python format those relational keys. And so I would like greater than or equal to. And if it's greater than or equal to, I'm going to type 70. You can type anything you would like to on yours. That's great. I'm going to move to the right of that colon and press enter. You notice that the indentation has changed because now I'm within that if statement within the function. So that's why it's indented 4 diamonds or twice. If the average is greater than or equal to 70, I want to say something. Let's print something.
Yes. Let's say, yay, you're passing.
Oh, yeah, congratulations, doing great. So again, menu, built-ins, input, output, and print. I want to print a string that says congrats. You are doing great. Without that, closing that quotation, it's going to treat the rest of that line as a string until I clarify. Let's run it and check to make sure it works. Control R, what's the first test grade? We're going to get an 80, we're going to get a 90. Let's do a 60. We didn't do so well. Am I still passing? Yes, you're doing great.
Okay, now, Andy, what happens? What's it going to do if they're not passing?
Okay. If they're passing, I'm going to tell them congratulations.
Okay.
Or whatever statement you want to do. I'm going to back up those 2 spaces because I want to say, if you're not passing, then I want a different statement. So now I need to type that else. And I can still go to menu, built-ins, it's under control, and else is down there at the bottom. Now I could have done this at the same time with that if else. In this case, I'm doing it in 2 steps. Is there a difference? No, not really. If this is true, make that happen. Else, you notice, is lined up with that if, and I have this next block.
So you have a block, so you don't have to put another, like if the average is not 70, right? This is just going to be automatic if it's not. Anything other than if it's greater than or equal to 70.
If it's not 70 or above, any other situation going on, there's my else.
Got it.
Menu, built-ins, I want to make a print statement so that input, output, and print. What do I want to print? Let's visit during tutorials. What was that parenthesis? We ready to print? Are we ready to try it?
Let's try it.
Go to menu and then run. What's our first test grade? We did well. We didn't do so well. We improved some. And it worked.
Very nice. Okay, Andy, I have another request.
Okay, I'm ready. Wait, let me clear this out first. Just so when we do whatever we're going to do next, we can
So
see it a little easier.
I'm thinking about that earlier program that we personalized, where we said Tony's first program. So how could we do like a personalization on this grading program?
Excellent. Let's do it. Well, I need to find out their name. And when we did this before, we did that user input. We've done user input here, but I can also do user input to ask what their name is. Logic tells me before I start asking for test grades, I should probably ask who they are. So I'm going to press enter here to move everything down. I'm going to still call it name so I remember what it is later. And now I'm going to go back to that input, one of the same areas, input, output. I want input. You notice I haven't called it int this time because it's not. It's a name, it's a string. So what is your first name? Close out the string. Great, I have their name. Now I need to figure out what in the world I'd like to do with that.
Yes, so maybe down there where it says your current averages, we could change that print statement.
Let's change it. So I'm going to get rid of your. Okay, and now I need to put their name in here. And so I'm going to do it like I did before. And I'm going to make sure that it is a string. And name. And now I'm going to concatenate it with that plus sign. And type that apostrophe S.
Oh, great.
How's that?
Andy, can you go up to the and just show me where STR is in the menu? I believe, if I remember correctly,
there it is right there under type.
there it is. Okay. Oh, and someone just told us in the chat that name is already a string, right? Because we didn't put int.
Yep. So let's put it there.
So we don't have to, but it is up there in the menu if we need it.
Right.
So let's see, print name, and then we're going to connect that to a string that starts with apostrophe S, just like we did in the earlier program. So like Andy's current average is, and then we have a comma there because that was something that Wesley said earlier, to put a comma because average is an integer. If we wanted to put a plus right there, we'd have to make average a string.
Agreed.
Okay. Okay.
Agreed.
I say we see if it works.
So let's type Control R. What is my first name? My first name is Andy. What's my first test grade? Oh, 89, 72, 99. I got it. It worked
like we wanted it to.
Worked perfect.
Well, I know we're almost out of time, Andy, but there's so many more things we could do this program that we could enhance it. I'm sure you guys are thinking of other ways that you could enhance the program, and feel free to share them in the chat. As well as, has anybody been thinking of maybe formulas or things that you use in your classroom that you might want to use instead of averaging grades? And so you could start the program the same way we did with the average grades, right, Andy?
Yes. Think of any formula you want to do, any computations that would go in there. I want you to think about in your content, and then having students create this function here. It really deepens their understanding of what are they asking, what do they want, and how does it interact with each other. We could put name down in both of these if and else statements. Think of how you'd want to do that. Very similar to what we've already done. And I also want to talk for just a quick second about where we're going. And I hope you join us for our next session. And in our next session, we're going to dive into other aspects of the menu. We're going to start talking about control structures and lots of different options there. And then in that next one, we are even going to move into a little more complex ideas. So I look forward to seeing you again. Tony, am I missing anything in the comments?
I don't think so. I think everything's good. I know we're running out of time. But I hope everybody will come back for the next webinar.
Yes. And so Stacy, I'm going to hand it back to you.
Thank you, ladies. I was following along on my handheld, trying to write some notes. This was a perfect time for me to learn how to use Python. And now that I have a shell of a formula, I can go and use it with my chemistry students. So thank you, ladies. I tried to answer as many questions in the chat. And if for some reason you still need some help, I'm sure Andy and Tony can maybe shoot their emails in the chat window real quick. That way you can contact them directly. So in the chat, I'm going to post the certificate of attendance as well as the documents from tonight. If you click on the certificate of attendance, you can type your name in and you're able to get a certificate that you attended tonight, as well as the associated documents for tonight. I know a few people in the chat were talking about the time flew by really fast and they hoping they could come back and watch the recording. So you will receive an email in a couple of days when the recording is available, and you are more than welcome to go back at your leisure and go through the associated documents as well as the recording. And it will also be posted on the education.ti.com under webinars as a recorded. We want you to stay connected with TI. We have various social media platforms. They're all at TI calculators. If you're doing something fun and cool in your classroom and you want to share, or if you want to see what other people are doing that's fun and cool in their classrooms. There will be a survey that comes to you as soon as the webinar is over. If you could fill that out for us, that would be great. That gives TI an idea of your needs and wants, and also the availability to have conversations after the conclusion of the webinar in case you need anything. As mentioned by myself and also Andy and Tony, we do have 2 other dates as follow-ups to this, May 19th and July 14th. We're going to continue to dive into Python and learn more information about the value of Python in a math, science, STEM classroom, and also become better at using the TI technology. So thank you all very much. I know that was a lot. Like I said, the recording helps you if you can go back and watch it at your leisure. And Andy and Tony, I think tonight was great, a great introduction. And thank you all for being with us tonight.